Harold's divorce from his wife Paula shocked everyone who knew them, but it was not as shocking as when he announced he would marry a younger blonde named Melissa only a month later. The wedding, which was already the subject of much gossip and speculation, didn't go along swimmingly as the would-be married couple had hoped. When the priest asked, "Does anyone object to this marriage?" Harold didn't think anyone would dare speak up. However, the words that left Paula's mouth made the room gasp, their wide, disbelieving eyes immediately turning to Harold and Melissa. Everyone was so flabbergasted that even the priest stepped back in shock. They must have misheard her. This was very uncharacteristic of sweet Paula. Yet as they all turned to her, they saw the resolve in her face, the smile that usually adorned her lips, now replaced by a deep frown that did not suit her at all. "Paula, what are you even saying?" Harold said, a humorless laugh leaving his lips as he was the first person to say anything. He moved a bit forward toward Paula, stepping in between Melissa and Paula, almost as if to protect her. Paula blinked slowly, the room holding their breath in anticipation of what she would say. "You heard me, Harold," she started, turning to the disbelieving crowd around them all. "And I have proof too," she continued as she looked at Melissa, who looked confusedly from Paula to Harold. She couldn't see Harold's face, but if she could, she would see how all the blood drained from his face. But what had Paula said as her objection? Why had Harold suddenly appeared so pale? And most importantly, what was the proof that Paula had found to support her claim? Those months ago, Paula could never have imagined that Harold would ever leave her. They had been married for more than 40 years, and she thought they could even make it to 50 if their health allowed it. She had believed that she and him were happy in their marriage, but she couldn't have been more wrong about that. She remembered the day he got home after allegedly playing golf with some of his old work buddies. The two of them had been retired for quite some time now, but they both were quite adamant about keeping themselves healthy and fit. Paula still played tennis and walked with some of her friends. She never could have thought that it was actually a ruse. "Welcome back, Harold. Come sit next to me, Jeopardy has just started," Paula had called excitedly as he saw him standing in the doorway of their living room. She knew how much he liked it, and she even made the effort to record it, just like her grandson had shown her. However, seeing the look on his face, she knew something was wrong. Paula's smile faltered as concern filled her. She immediately got up on her feet, closing the distance between them, but as she reached for his hand, he pulled away. "Is everything all right? Has anything happened?" Paula asked, almost frantic, looking over her husband to find anything out of the ordinary. Yet she didn't find anything, at least not anything that had to do with his physical health. Harold let out a sigh, a pained expression on his face as his hand halted for a moment before grabbing Paula's. She didn't miss how one hand was behind his back, and with the grave look on his face, she knew it couldn't be good. "Paula," he started, using her name instead of words like darling or my dear, which set alarm bells ringing in Paula's head. "You and I have been together for 40 years, but I have noticed for a while now that He paused, trying to find the words as Paula froze in place. This couldn't be happening. "I think that our companionship has come to its natural end," he finished, a guilty gleam in his eye as his other arm went from behind his back into Paula's view. Harold was holding documents, and realization dawned on Paula as she knew what they were. The blood drained from her face as she took them from his hand. They were divorce papers. "I understand, Harold," Paula murmured, her voice a blend of resignation and disbelief. She gestured towards the door with a trembling hand. "Please, just go. I need a moment." The weight of the papers in her grasp felt like stones, and with each word, a hammer struck her heart. Harold looked at her, a flicker of something like regret crossing his face, but he said nothing more. He lingered at the threshold, his hand on the doorknob, torn between leaving and staying. His eyes met Paula's, searching for some sign of the love that had once bound them so tightly. But her gaze was empty, resigned as she looked back at him, an unspoken goodbye hanging between them. With a heavy sigh, Harold turned and stepped through the door. Paula moved to the window, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She watched as Harold walked down the driveway, his figure a shadow against the twilight. As Harold reached the street, a car pulled up, a sleek, unfamiliar sedan. He got in without looking back. Who had come to pick him up? Through the dimming light, Paula squinted, trying to discern the driver's face. All she could see was a cascade of blonde hair, the silhouette blurred and mysterious. Her heart sank further. Who was this woman? A cold knot formed in her stomach as she watched the car's taillights disappear, taking with them a part of her life she'd thought immutable. The room felt empty as echoes of the past bounced off the walls. Paula sat down, the divorce papers unopened beside her. Each breath was a struggle against the weight of her loneliness. She stared at the envelope, a tangible symbol of her new reality. Slowly, she reached for it, her fingers trembling as she pulled at the seal, bracing herself for the terms Harold had set. Paula's hands trembled as she unfolded the papers, tears making the lines blur and swim before her eyes. So many details, she whispered to the silent room, the words slipping through her lips like a sigh. Each asset, each memory reduced to cold, hard numbers. She wiped her cheeks, the paper rustling in her lap as reality sank its teeth deeper. Flipping through page after page, Paula muttered to herself, "He's been planning this a long time, hasn't he?" The timelines and precision all pointed to months of secret preparations. She slapped the stack down, a sting of betrayal flashing across her face. 40 years and he's got it down to a spreadsheet, she scoffed, her voice hollow with hurt. Paula grabbed her phone, her thumb hovering over her lawyer's contact, before pressing it decisively. "John? It's Paula. I need you." Her voice broke as she spoke. The line crackled, then his steady voice came through. "Paula, what's happened?" he asked, his tone grounding her. "Harold has just served me divorce papers. Harold, he's been thorough," she managed to say. "Every detail's accounted for, John. He's left nothing up for debate," Paula said, trying to keep the quiver from her voice. There was a pause on the line as John processed her words. "Okay, let's take this one step at a time. Can you bring the papers in tomorrow morning?" he asked, pragmatic as ever. "Yes, I'll bring everything. I need to understand what I can do," Paula replied, her resolve building. "All right, Paula. I'm going to help you through this. First thing tomorrow, we meet and start untangling this knot." John's voice was firm, a promise in the midst of her storm. Paula nodded, though he couldn't see. "Thank you, John," she said, her voice steadier now. She hung up, feeling a little less alone with the plan in place, the first step to moving forward clear at last. After only a month, in the sterile quiet of the courtroom, Paula and Harold inked the end of their marriage with swift, firm strokes. No words were exchanged, just a mutual nod, a final silent acknowledgement of what had been. As the judge declared their union dissolved, Paula felt a surreal sense of closure, the chapter ending as simply as turning a page in a book. Stepping out into the sunlight, Harold didn't miss a beat. "Everyone, this is Melissa," he announced, gesturing to the young woman by his side. The group gathered outside the courthouse shifted uneasily, exchanging glances. Melissa's smile wavered under their scrutiny, the tension palpable as murmurs began to fill the air. Melissa extended her hand, her smile tight and overly bright. "It's so nice to finally meet you all. Har has told me so much about you all," she said, her voice a little too cheery. One by one, their family and friends shook her hand, their smiles strained, their eyes darting to Paula, who stood a little apart, a look of recognition coming over her face. Paula watched, her heart sinking as she recognized Melissa, the same blonde hair, the same nervous smile. She was the driver, the one from that night. Paula's breath caught in her throat, the pieces falling into place with a painful clarity. She leaned against the courthouse wall, feeling suddenly unsteady. Around them, the buzz of conversation grew louder. "Can you believe it?" someone whispered, not quite out of earshot. "After everything." Another voice trailed off. Paula closed her eyes briefly, the voices around her swirling with confusion and disbelief. When she looked up again, Melissa was looking her way, a flicker of something like regret crossing her face before she turned away. Paula got home fueled by a mix of betrayal and resolve as she sat in her quiet living room, her mind racing with possibilities for revenge. She wasn't usually one to hold grudges, but this cut too deep. "They won't get away with this," she muttered to herself, flipping open a notebook. Page by page, she began to outline her thoughts, her pen scratching in the silent room. Paula spent the evening alone, her dining table strewn with papers and old photographs of happier times. She pored over each detail of their past and their personal hobbies, looking for clues, for leverage. "There's got to be something," she whispered, her fingers brushing over a photo of Harold smiling. She jotted down every instance that could be connected, but she had no clue how deep she would have to go. The next morning, Paula started making calls to some old friends. "Hey, it's Paula. I'm just trying to understand something about Harold recently." Her voice was casual, but her note-taking was fervent. Each call provided pieces of the puzzle, snippets of Harold's behavior that hadn't made sense then, but now began to click into place. Her friends were sympathetic, telling her they were on her side, but that didn't ease the pain. With each new piece of information, Paula's determination solidified. She stood by her living room window, looking out with a steely gaze. "They think they've won," she said to herself, her voice firm and low. "But I'm not done yet." Her commitment to this cause had turned from a simmer to a boil. She wouldn't let them enjoy their victory so easily. By the end of the day, Paula had outlined various possibilities, yet she was coming to a standstill. There was only so much she could do herself, and this seemed to be that moment. She wasn't as well versed with technology as she wanted to be, and she knew she needed help. Then it hit her. She knew exactly what to do. Paula flipped through her contacts, stopping at a number recommended by a friend. She dialed, her voice steady. "I need someone who can handle a discreet job," she explained to the private investigator on the other end. As she outlined what she needed, surveillance, not scandal, the PI listened, his replies short and professional. "We can handle this discreetly for you," he assured her. In their first face-to-face meeting, Paula handed over a stack of photographs and scribbled notes. "Here are pictures of Harold and Melissa, and these are places they frequent," she said, spreading out a map marked with locations and times. The investigator took notes, nodding along without much emotion. "I will be back with my findings as soon as possible," he said curtly before leaving. The investigator started his work immediately, shadowing Harold from a distance. He blended into the background, his camera lens focused on capturing moments that might reveal more than mere public interactions. Each snapshot and each recorded conversation was a piece of a puzzle, meticulously collected and cataloged for review. Paula waited, her mind racing with possibilities of what he might find. Every evening, Paula's phone buzzed with updates. "We've got more footage today," the investigator's voice crackled over the line. He was professional, revealing little, yet each report made Paula's heart race. She scribbled notes in the margins of her planner, her anticipation mounting. "Anything I should be aware of?" she would ask, her voice hopeful for just the right piece of evidence. Finally, one late afternoon, the call Paula had been waiting for came. "We found some irregular patterns and more," the investigator spoke, his tone hinting at the gravity of the findings. "I'll compile everything into a comprehensive report and get it to you by tomorrow." Paula's grip tightened on the phone, her breath catching. "Thank you," she managed, her mind already racing ahead to the confrontation she knew would come. Paula's living room felt more like a detective's office as the private investigator spread out the photos and papers with a low rustle. "Take a look at what we found," he said, his voice a confidential whisper. Paula leaned in, her eyes flicking across each piece. "Oh, this will do nicely," she murmured, a sly smile playing on her lips. "Exactly what I need for my plans." Later, sitting alone among the scattered evidence, Paula felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger bubbled up, sure, but there was also this undeniable thrill. Each photo, a silent ally in her upcoming battle. She traced a finger over one image, her smile widening. "You've really done it now, Harold," she whispered to the empty room, a spark of vengeful delight warming her chilled heart. When it was time to wrap up, Paula handed the investigator his payment, her handshake firm. "You've been great, and I might just need more of your talent," she hinted, her tone light but serious. He nodded, all business. "I'm here when you need me," he assured her, his footsteps echoing down the hall as he left. She knew that for this plan to work, she would need to act like nothing was wrong. She couldn't sit idle and decided to dive back into her normal activities. She went back to the tennis club and hit up local events. "To new beginnings," she said with a smile to her friends and acquaintances, telling them she was having a fresh start and didn't wish Harold any ill will. Life buzzed pleasantly around Paula, her days filled with various activities for her to do. But in the quiet nights, her thoughts sharpened, plotting the perfect moment for revelation. She wasn't just going to bounce back, she was going to come out on top, stronger and smarter. And when the time was right, she'd drop her bombshell. For now, she waited, the secret her ace in the hole. Over dinner, the chatter took a sharp turn when Harold's wedding popped up. "We just can't go, it's wrong," her son blurted out, his face tense. The grandkids nodded, clearly on the same page. Paula took it all in, her face giving nothing away while her family stood firm against the idea of celebrating the new union. That wedding of his would be the perfect moment to strike. Now she only had to ensure she would be invited. As the dishes clinked and the conversation dipped, Paula said, "What if we all go?" Everyone froze, their eyes wide. She quickly added, "I mean, you could tell your father that you would only go if I got an invite too. It's better if we stick together in this." She threw in a knowing look, a silent hint that she had a plan up her sleeve. "Here's what we'll do," Paula continued, her tone now conspiratorial. "We go, we smile, and we make Harold and Melissa feel like everything is perfect. It's about keeping your friends close and your enemies closer." She looked around, her gaze firm and persuasive. "Can we do that?" she asked, her challenge hanging in the air. A moment of silence hung before nods slowly began around the table. "If you really think this is the way, Mom," her daughter conceded. She trusted her mother, but couldn't help but feel a bit reluctant to see her father getting remarried so soon. "We're with you," her son finally declared, as they all trusted Paula's plan. With the wedding day drawing closer, Paula slipped into her role flawlessly. At every social event, she was all smiles and friendly chats, making everyone believe she was all in on this new chapter. Behind each laugh and nod, though, was a woman with a plan, her cheerful facade expertly masking the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Paula's phone rang late in the afternoon, Harold's name flashing on the screen. "Paula," he started, his voice tinged with unease, "I'm getting married to Melissa." He paused, waiting for Paula's reaction, but she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "The kids said they'd only come if you're there too." Paula held her breath, letting the silence stretch a bit before responding, letting him sweat it out a little. "Harold, I don't know," Paula began, her voice wavering just enough to sound genuinely conflicted. She sighed audibly, adding, "I guess if it really means making everyone happy, I can come." Her tone softened as if she was reluctantly giving in to a noble cause. "Okay, I'll be there," she finally conceded, her heart racing with anticipation of the role she'd play. A few days later, a beautifully embossed invitation arrived. Paula traced her fingers over her name, printed elegantly across the front. She flipped it open, her eyes scanning the formal request to join Harold and Melissa on their special day. A smirk touched her lips briefly as she set the card down. It was all becoming very real, very fast. Standing in front of her wardrobe, Paula pulled out several options, each dress a potential costume for her act. She chose a tasteful, elegant outfit that screamed dignified, but not defeated. Laying it out on the bed, she plotted her movements and interactions for the day, visualizing every step, every smile. She had to be perfect, undeniably gracious. In the quiet of her bedroom, Paula rehearsed her expressions in the mirror. A smile here, a surprised look, maybe even a tear during the vows. She practiced her congratulations, her voice warm and forgiving, her handshake firm yet tender. "You've got this, Paula," she whispered to her reflection, the master of her emotions, ready to deliver a performance no one would forget. Paula arrived at the wedding venue, taking in the lavish decorations with a calm, appreciative nod. Her demeanor was the epitome of composure as she gracefully navigated through the crowd. Each step was measured, her smile serene yet distant. The soft rustle of her dress mingled with the whispers of admiration from some guests who noted her elegance and how brave it was for her to be there. As guests chatted around her, Paula circulated, her small bag hanging by her side, a secret arsenal as it held all her proof. She exchanged pleasantries, her laughter light, her eyes scanning the room. No one noticed the weight of the documents tucked against her sidle. She kept her face smooth, her excitement for the day's plan hidden behind a veneer of sociability. During the ceremony, Paula sat quietly, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her gaze drifted from the couple at the altar to the gathered family and friends, a serene picture of patience. Inside, her heart beat a steady rhythm of anticipation. She counted the minutes, her mind rehearsing the words she would soon speak. The question hung in the air: does anyone object to this union? Silence stretched, a palpable tension building. Then, raising her arm, Paula cleared her throat, her voice resonating clearly. "Yes, I object." All eyes snapped to her, and a collective breath was held. She stood confidently, the documents a mere heartbeat away in her bag. A collective gasp rippled through the room as her objection sunk in. She could feel the nasty looks she was getting from Melissa's side of the room, but Paula knew she couldn't let them marry without Melissa knowing the facts of the situation. "Harold isn't who he has made himself out to be," Paula started, and as Harold tried to speak, she continued, "and I have proof." As Paula's words hung heavy in the air, the room fell utterly silent, all eyes locked on her. She stood unwaveringly, the quiet so deep you could hear a pin drop. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of photographs. The silence persisted. Everyone braced for what was coming next. What could possibly be captured on those photographs? Paula spread the photographs out for all to see, each one clearly Harold with another woman, their interactions unmistakably intimate. "These were taken recently," Paula announced, her voice steady, the evidence laid bare for all. The initial shock was palpable, the images passing from hand to hand as the reality of Harold's deceit began to sink in among the guests. As the photographs circulated, shocked murmurs grew into a low roar. Guests leaned in to whisper to each other, their expressions ranging from disbelief to outrage. Melissa, pale and visibly shaken, turned to Harold. "Is this true?" she demanded, her voice cracking with a mix of anger and heartbreak. She held up a photo for him to see, her hands trembling. Harold's face went white as he met her gaze, the room watching intently as the drama unfolded. "Melissa, I can explain," he started, but his voice faltered under her steely look. Harold attempted to speak, to explain, but his words sounded hollow and desperate. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered, but the photographs told a different, irrefutable story. As he fumbled for excuses, the guests' reactions ranged from scorn to sympathy for Melissa. It was clear his explanations were falling on deaf ears, the evidence too damning to dismiss. This was perfect. In a moment charged with raw emotion, Melissa, overwhelmed by the weight of betrayal, did the unthinkable. With a tear-streaked face, she grabbed her bridal bouquet and in a fit of anger, hurled it directly at Harold. The flowers struck him with a soft thud before tumbling to the ground, a poignant symbol of their shattered promises. Without another word, she turned sharply and walked away from the altar. Melissa approached Paula, her expression one of remorse. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know. I never intended to be part of hurting you." Her eyes sought forgiveness, understanding the depth of pain her presence had inadvertently caused. Paula, seeing the genuine regret in Melissa's eyes, nodded slowly, acknowledging her apology. Paula reached out, her hand lightly touching Melissa's arm. "It's not your fault," Paula reassured her softly, her tone warm and forgiving. "You have been played as much as I have." They shared a look, a silent communication of mutual hurt and understanding that bridged the gap between them. It was a moment of powerful solidarity. Two women connected by the pain of deception, by the one they thought loved them. Gathering themselves, Paula and Melissa joined the children who were waiting quietly, their faces a mix of relief and sadness. Together, they all made their way out of the venue, leaving the whispers and shocked faces behind. They headed to Paula's home, a place of comfort and familial love, where they could find peace and discuss everything away from the prying eyes of the public. Back at the wedding venue, Harold stood abandoned at the altar, the echo of Melissa's departing footsteps haunting the now silent hall. The guests murmured among themselves, casting glances full of judgment towards him. His moment of reckoning had left him isolated, a solitary figure enveloped by the consequences of his own actions. The room's atmosphere was thick with disapproval, Harold's fall from grace complete.